didn't specify.
Well, shit, I didn't know I was supposed to look.
Well, why wouldn't you?
But,
you're waiting for my signal.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back.
That's not this episode that we're pre-doing for the episode 17.
No, we're technically back, though. We're pre-logging for episode 17,
That's
but it
fair.
never aired.
Okay, that's fair.
So, technically, I thought it aired already.
Well,
So this is the pre-log for episode 17. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you about it. So remember when we did the episode for
Memorial
Day?
Yep.
Well, let me stop you there because you know what time it is.
Shot time.
Shot time.
Oh, shot time.
Yeah,
Well,
he
gotta
wanted to fight.
keep
He
going.
wanted to fight me on this one, but I told him, too bad, bitch. You're taking it.
Shit, I'm not taking it. We already decided.
No, he's not. Police, he's not taking it because he's got to drive home.
Exactly.
Right. But yes, we're back. So what happened was we had a little break. Kyle had a baby. I had a lot of things going on in my life. There just wasn't time for us to actually meet up and talk about things because we were both busy. It's the summertime, shit happens. But the episode we're about to run is a very good one, I believe. I think it's probably one of the better ones we could run from being gone for so long.
Yeah, I would agree.
Especially with the last one being the Memorial Day episode. I got it.
Okay, it's
Well,
bouncing.
stop whispering at me. Just say it, bitch. You know how this one works? I don't understand what you're saying.
That's because I'm
But
not
anyway,
saying anything.
Like I said, I think it's one of the better episodes that we could possibly run with the last one being Memorial Day, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Okay, so that was the last
Oh,
one.
no. Memorial Day was not the last one we
It
did.
wasn't?
It was episode 16. I can't remember what it was about, but it was not Memorial Day. The last one we did was on July 29th was the last release date.
Okay, so it's been that long that I can't even remember.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you do remember the Memorial Day episode, we had a man on there, but we're going to take the shot and then I'll continue.
Scooter.
Screwball.
That screwball is delicious. Contact
Absolutely
us,
delightful.
please.
Puts me in the right state of mind every time.
Every time.
Every time.
God, I'm old.
So we're going to talk about this episode that we had. If you remember the Memorial Day episode, we had a man on there named Joe Miles. World War II veteran that had tons of stories that I couldn't believe that I had to actually cut him off. And I felt bad doing it. Like, I felt bad.
He was a great guy.
He was. He would have talked to us all day.
All day.
But the problem was I wanted to get other people's perspectives. And I think we did that in a good manner.
Yeah, okay.
So I actually pulled his daughter-in-law aside and said, hey, I want this man's number. We're going to talk to him for a full episode. So what you're about to hear is going to be the episode of Joe Miles Sr. during World War II, coming up in his life, joining the Navy first at like 15, I think it was.
I think it was 15 or 14.
15 or 16. You'll find out because he's going to tell you.
Yeah.
But this man is absolutely amazing. And I don't want to spoil everything and tell you what he's done because he's going to tell you himself. But I was mesmerized by where he was, the things he's seen.
Things he did.
The things he did. Exactly. Like, blown away.
Yeah.
I mean, I was flabbergasted.
Me too.
Because this man, think about this, ladies and gentlemen. The height of the war, World War II. And I just can't fathom it. Like,
I know. I mean, I could have literally listened to him all day.
All day.
All day. Like,
it would have been like a 5-hour episode.
Yeah. It would have been insane.
And the thing is, it's funny because he doesn't really repeat himself.
Yeah.
Like you would think an old man does.
Yep.
But he was on track.
Oh, he was.
I mean, he didn't skip a beat.
Mm-hmm.
And don't ask him about his tattoo. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about that
Right,
just
right.
a minute ago.
See, that's a hanger to make you want to listen.
He tells the story.
Right. But yeah, we took our screwball shot. We actually recorded this one a while ago. And like I said, things happened.
We had some technical.
We're going to start consistently being back on again.
Yes, we are.
Consistently. Like I said, Kyle had a baby. Fuck you, Kyle.
Fuck me. Okay.
No, man. The man had to go on paternity leave. I had to give him paternity leave. Because otherwise, I'm a racist person in the world.
He is. Don't worry about it.
Or not racist, sexist. I'm sorry.
He's that too.
Go suck a dick.
Did you just assume my gender?
I'm a goat. I've already decided that I'm going to be a goat.
You are the goat.
No, I'm not the goat. I'm a goat.
He's the goat.
Please don't call me the goat. I'm a goat.
A goat, the goat.
No, I'm not the goat.
A goat, the goat.
By saying the goat makes me the only goat.
No, a goat, the goat. That's the
Don't
title.
argue with me about pronouns, please.
Is it hurting your feelings?
No, it's not hurting my feelings.
But
it's
you
just making me angry.
as a goat, or a goat, as you say, but your title is the goat.
No, my title's a goat.
No, you are a goat.
Actually, the title's just goat.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
So if you put the in front of it, it makes me the only goat.
What about the?
No, it still makes me the only goat.
Unless it's a title.
Like if I said you were the man, that's inappropriate apparently nowadays because that makes you the only man.
Well, I
have to say you're man.
I don't care what you have to say.
Well, whatever. Build me my own fucking goat bathroom. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. I got to run down some. What do you got to say, Kyle?
I got to say is at the beginning of this episode, we actually come in on the story because we had some technical difficulties. So we actually come in like pre-story. I'm pretty sure he was talking about Hiroshima.
We missed that?
Half of it.
Are we sure?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to give that away.
Yeah, we missed half of it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, in case I don't want to be a spoiler, but we don't know, so I'm going to run this down for you. This man, they dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
It was Nagasaki that he was at.
No, he was at Hiroshima.
Was he? Okay,
I don't know. He's at one of them. I can't remember.
Exactly. He was at one of them.
He was at one of them. It blows my mind.
Yeah, dude.
But this man was at .0 2 days after they dropped the bomb.
Yeah.
He was in the crater.
Which is insane, which I don't know how he hasn't just died of cancer yet.
Right. I mean,
like, that makes no sense.
I don't understand. But he was at the point of history.
Yes.
Where no one else has been.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Like, I want to be at a point of history in my life, Kyle, where no one else has been before.
I mean, I feel like you've made a lot of history, Todd. Like, just being you, what you've gone through, I feel like you've done a lot of, you've been in a lot of history.
No, Kyle, that's not enough for me. I want to be the first quadruple amputee on the moon.
Whenever they get that moon base up and running.
With a monkey. I got to have a monkey with me.
Whenever they get it on, I think it's scheduled for 2024. They're supposed to put the first base on the moon with the first woman, by the way.
Right.
So then they're going to send you up.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, like I usually do, I'm going to go over some foundations that really help me out and anyone that's still listening. Joshua Chamberlain Society, JCS.org. Tunnels to Towers, they build homes for wounded warriors. I know I'm running through them real fast, but if you've been listening, you know. So we're going to also go with...
Warfighters Engage.
Warfighters Engage. Sorry, you got me. I got tongue-tied. Warfighters Engage, they build fucking controllers for wounded veterans again to get back into the gaming community. You got Semper Fi Fund, who helps Marines with anything if you're hurting for money or you can't find salary to pay for things. I mean, there's a ton out there. I might have missed some. But
did you mention the one that you're going to next week?
Oh, no, I didn't. Focus Marines Foundation.
I couldn't remember.
I'm sorry, man. You're right. I should probably put a list here.
For the major ones.
No, but I feel like I can do it. But you're right. I miss a shit.
Yeah.
But this is important.
It is.
I don't like to have an editorial bulletin for what I'm going to run through when I talk to. I like to go, skin of my teeth.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Important.
That's why I'm here.
Right. Well, let me get back to it.
Yep.
Focus Marines Foundation. If anyone out there is listening to this and you know any veteran that is struggling, please send them to the Focus Marines Foundation.org. And they'll have to sign up, go through an application. But this whole program changed my life. And I'm about to head out there fucking Saturday. Because I've been through this program many, many, many a times, and I'm actually a mentor out there now. Like, I'm getting my, what they call black shirt, which makes me a mentor now. He's whispering again, so I'm trying to look at him, trying to tell what he's saying. Oh, now he's looking at the microphone. It's weird. All right, we're going to cut this right now. We're done. Ladies and gentlemen, see you later.
Burns on them. Some of them was defaced and everything else, all from the heat that came up from that bomb. Then we left that area and we went back into Yokosuka, Japan, and we helped with the naval base there. And saying that we went in there, this thing this thing was well fortified. If we was going to invade it, like what they was bringing everybody into, it would have been massacre for ours, not for the Japanese, because they were all prepared. The whole works would have been fighting us, and they was well fortified.
So what you're telling me is if we wouldn't have dropped that bomb there, we would have never been able to get into
Oh, that's
Japan.
right. That's right. No, that it's something when you see it. You know, it's something that you'd always remember.
Oh yeah, there's war memories will always be etched in your mind, no matter if you get dementia or not. They're always going to be there because
That's right. See, and then we stayed in there, and I went from Yokosuka to Tokyo for 3 hours liberty.
Mm-hmm.
That's all we had. And it took us 4 hours to go by a little boat up there. And I had a buddy of mine who was in the medics, Army medics.
Wait, Army medics? You're Navy?
Yeah.
That's right. I'm Marine Corps, so
and
we all get along.
When we got up to Tokyo and we stepped off, 3 buddies and myself, I asked the MP, I says, you wouldn't happen to know where the 72nd Station Hospital, where it's located. I don't know if it's in Yokohama or where, you know. And Tokyo was flat. I mean, it was really bombed out. And he said, you see the building up there? And I said, yeah. He says, that's it. So the 3 of us walk up there. And as I get up, there's a soldier that walked out of the building. And when he come out, I called him, and I asked him, I said, you wouldn't happen to know Sergeant Howard Henley, would you? And he says, yes, he's in the mess hall. Now, you stop and think, you got Australia, you got everyone that was our companions on fighting that war. They were all over everything, and I picked out one guy in the mess hall.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes, it was.
So let's take a step back, Joe. So you were in the Navy, correct?
Oh, yeah.
And I want you to talk about when you enlisted, what your job was, things like.
Well,
so what did you do?
I was a fire controlman, and we controlled all the major guns.
Okay.
On the Iowa, we had 16-inch guns, and them guns, it was about 67 foot long for the rifling, and we could shoot accurately out 23 miles, although we have reached out some to 31 miles.
That's
And then projectiles was 2,300 pounds.
So where were you? What ship were you on, and where were you at in World War II? Like,
well, all over
all over.
Yeah, I was down in the Philippines. We was down in not Guadalcanal, but Guadalcanal, and that area down through the. Then we come back out of there and we headed towards Guam, and we was Cyan. I got to stop and think a little bit here.
Hey, you're all right, man.
Yeah,
Take your time.
Tinian and Saipan and Guam. That's the 3 islands there. And we was over Tyra. And I lost 2 buddies on there that was Marines from St. Louis.
So you were on the island hopping campaign then?
Then, yeah.
So what do you think about Marines?
I used to get them hot. Because I had to go through their compartment to get to mine. Now, before I should say anything, I had a lot of good buddies in there, see. But every time I'd get in their compartment, I'd holler out, what the hell is a Marine? And then the first thing you know, you get some kind of answer. Then I say to them, well, you can't be, because when you get paid, it says U.S. Navy.
You know what? I've heard that before, but the problem is the U.S. Navy won't let us go be our own department because we make too much money for them.
Yeah. But see, we did actually pay their salary.
You still do?
Yeah. That was our branch, our amphibious branch, see. Mm-hmm. And then we left out of there, and we headed out for Japan again. But we messed around there, and then when we went back, like I was telling you, we're taking the Iowa back home, and we come back, and I ended up on the Bremerton. Well, the communists and the nationalists was fighting on the mainland, and they had split up.
And that's in China, correct?
Yeah, and our home port was Tsingtao.
Okay.
But we covered Hong Kong, Shanghai, Singapore, Borneo, and then we come back around. We was moving all the time. The only time we done anything is when we went back to Guam and got supplies.
So, a question for you, because I'm really curious. Did you ever have any torpedo scares on your boats?
Any what?
Torpedo scares?
No.
No?
No, I tell you what, I got some coins that I had sent away to American, what do they call it?
American Mint.
Yeah, American Mint. And I got them. And the coins is all the largest battleships in World War II. And the first one you see is USS Iowa. Now, we had on the Iowa, we had 56 guns. That counted our 20s, our 50s, 40 millimeters, 16-inch, 5-inch 38s, and we carried 3 seaplanes.
So no one dare no one dare mess with that boat, huh?
No, and our armor plating is 16 inches, and that only runs from the beginning of the bow to the stopping of the stern. It's just midships. That's where your biggest, because I just got through telling you about the plotting rooms. All the plotting rooms was 3 decks below the water line. And that was the reason, because when you had to go through that 16 inches of metal before you ever got into the... But then on the Bremerton, we stayed there for almost 11 months. And when Chiang Kai-shek started leaving the mainland and going into Taiwan, we moved out of Tsingtao, because we were still there protecting Chiang Kai-shek.
And what year was this?
Pardon?
What year was this?
That was in 1946.
You hear that, ladies and gentlemen? 1946. Before half of us were even thought about, this man had already been through hell and back.
Yeah, really, and I got pictures of that too. So we stayed there, and then we finally got called home. Well, when we got called home, we had the flag going from the mast out. That's the going home pennant. And you had to be over there a year to fly that flag when you went into port. And they cut that flag up. Every man on the ship got a 6-inch piece of it until it got down to the stars and stripes. Then the officers got the piece off of there. We only got the red, white, and blue.
You still have your piece?
Pardon?
Do you still have your piece?
I still got it. It's only about that long. I got it I had a little thing about that thick, and I got it laying flat in there. The only thing is I can't find it.
Isn't it amazing the things we keep to remember?
Yeah.
And like this, I wouldn't call them souvenirs, but the nostalgia of the things that we got from our experiences in war, we hold on to because that's something that you hold dear to your heart.
Well, when I come home on the Iowa, I brought 2 guns. I brought a 25 and a 31. And I gave one to my brother. He was in in World War II. And he was at, I got to think.
You're all right.
I'm ahead of myself, saying.
Hey.
Okinawa.
Okinawa and Iwo Jima.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And a good buddy of his, that was older than my brother. They hit the beach together.
So you and your brother were at 2 historical wars in World War II and are here to talk about it, and no one's ever asked you any of these questions?
Well, see, he was in World War II, and his buddy, they landed together. And as soon as they hit the beach, his brother got shot through the head. And he lost his life there. Well, when they moved out of, they moved to, what did you say?
Okinawa.
Okinawa. And he stayed on Okinawa till it was over, And then they moved him into Japan. Then he went home from there.
I mean, that's amazing to make it through Okinawa the whole time. I mean, thousands of men lost their lives on that island.
I got a picture of it.
You got a picture of it?
Right up here, the Marine setting it up.
And ladies and gentlemen, we have Joe Miles Sr.'s son here, too, who we're going to get to in a little bit to ask stories about his dad and stuff.
Speaking of Uncle Leo, it's mentionable, Leo got shot on...
Well, on the other place, Leo got shot. He got Purple Heart twice. But the one time, he got shot right here. And it moved up over years. It was up here on top of the shoulder because your body changes and the skin moves right along with it, see?
So I got a question for you, Joe. You're going through boot camp and stuff. And what was initiation on the ship like?
Pardon?
Initiation on the ship?
You get your ass.
Yeah, you could say whatever you want. Go ahead.
When you go across that equator, buddy.
I've heard some stories, but I want to know what it was like for you.
Well, you're a pollywog if you ain't ever crossed it.
So what's a pollywog? That's
down. You're low. You're low, man.
You're low man on the totem pole.
Yeah, and the night before you're going across, if you can get that pirate flag down, which is flying off the mast, you don't have to go through that initiation. But every time you want to go get it, there's a bunch of them that's got you, and they're doing something to you. So it never comes down, Well, the next morning when you start that off, you go up, and here's his crew that come up through the anchor chain, and what they're doing, they're all sitting there, and here's King Navy and all that.
So these are all men that have already crossed the equator before?
So what you do, they got the fattest right there. You would have fit perfect.
He's pointing at Kyle. He's pointing at Kyle right now saying
you would have fit perfect, I'll tell you. You get down on your hands and knees, and they got axle grease all over his belly, and you got to kiss his belly, and they shove your head right into it, man. Then you go to a table, and there's a bunch of pharmacists, and they got a hot scissor, and they lay you on there, and while they're doing, plug up your ears, Mary Ann. they got a condom, and they got it loaded with some kind of cream. And you're laying there on that table, and they're rubbing that son-of-a-bitch across your belly. And all the time, this guy's got that up there, and he's squeezing it, and right in.
Right in the mouth.
Right in. Well, then they take you out of there, and you go around to the washman, or barber, rather, and you sit down in that chair, and they just cut your hair any damn way they want, And then they release it backwards. And when you go backwards, you fall into a tank of water. And that water is just deep enough that you got to stand on your tiptoes to take and stand up. They have a mattress that goes over the side of it. Everybody's got to go out over that mattress. And as you're going over that mattress, they're beating your ass. And you get down on your hands and your knees, and you start crawling. And everybody on that ship that is a pollywog, that's the one that's got to crawl. But they go across it, and then everybody that's a shellback, they go down as far as it goes till they run out of shellbacks. And they all got shillelaghs.
Now, what's a shillelagh for people
And
who
the
don't know?
shillelagh, they fix them in a piece of canvas. And they're about that long, and they're filled with sawdust.
So we're looking at maybe about a foot and a half.
Yeah, well, your butt will show it when you get to the end, a buck and a half. Yeah, that's about it. They're about that long, and everybody beats you. And when you get, I had a buddy, and he's standing right on the end of that line, and he said, Joe, get up. Well, I started to get up, and when he hit me, I went over close to them white lines over there. Yeah. He said, you're finished.
So you're a shellback now.
Now you're a shellback.
So
it all goes in your record. If you ever lose the record, I have a card someplace. But if I could find the card,
again?
you have to go back through it if you lose the records.
Oh, well, I'm a polywog. I'm a Marine. I've never been across the equator. So
Did you?
yeah, I've never have.
Oh man! My problem was I never got to go over it again.
Well, nowadays, Joe, they'd call that hazing, but you know.
Yeah. See. Yeah.
But they're getting soft out there in the military.
Well,
nowadays.
my brother-in-law, he was or son-in-law, but he was on a carrier, and he says, "Well, I've been through all of them. That they have different ones for." But the big one is when you cross that equator. And he said, but we didn't get nothing like that. He said, we had barbecues. That's right.
You motherfuckers.
Yeah.
So we got Joe's son here, and I want to bring him in for a minute. You're also Joe as well.
Correct.
So, you know, growing up, did your dad ever talk to you about these stories, or?
Sure. I've heard many of his stories, probably very many of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And growing up, what'd you think about that? I mean,
Interesting. Very interesting.
Interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
because being a young child with the father in the service and stuff, and not knowing about that type of stuff.
Right.
I mean, was it like learning about World War II in elementary? Did you always go, well, my dad was in there? Or?
I don't actually recall like that, but I was the South Pacific. I was very familiar with those battles.
Yeah, with the island hopping campaign.
Yes, much more than the European part of that war.
Right.
Because all of my uncles and of course my dad was in the South Pacific.
Okay. Yeah, and then that's for the Army out there. You hear that? Just because you took over a whole continent, and we took over a bunch of little islands, but those islands were all fortified like you wouldn't believe.
Well, on Guam, whenever we were there for supplies, they take and have the island people working for the government, see? Well, they'd get in line to go through the chow line, and the Japs was coming out of the island. There are caves in there all over the island. And they come down, they get in the line, try to pass herself off like the Guamese, you know, and that's how they catch them. But when they catch them, all the thing they was doing was sending them back to Japan.
So instead of taking a prisoner of war, they sent them back to Japan?
Yeah. Hey, I took and guarded German prisoners of war up in the island, up in not San Francisco, but Oakland.
Oakland?
Up in the mountains. We had a concentration camp, and I was waiting on my third trip out, and that's the only thing they had for us to do.
Was watch Germans?
Man, they loved it. Hell, you go look at it, it looked like a big farm. And they had their own thing all built up, and they do anything they want. They're walking all over.
Yeah, because they probably seen their
half of them
concentration
didn't want to
camps.
go back to Germany.
Let's go back to what Todd had mentioned there because that's pretty interesting. I think you were talking about Guam, and when they would catch the Japanese, I guess they were soldiers at one point, and they would send them back to Japan. Was that after the war and treaty was signed, or were they doing that during the war?
Nothing went back there until after they signed it on the ship. But like on Okinawa, for an example, when the battle was going on there, now they show that battle so many times, but they never show them jumping off of the end of the island. And the Japs, as we took Guam, and that they was pushing them, and the women on there at Okinawa and everything, they always thought that the Americans was going to rape them and all that. So they were jumping right off with them.
So at the end of the island was a cliff, and everybody's just jumping off.
Everybody was jumping off. They done the same thing on Guam.
Well, how far of a drop was it?
Hell, I guess it was about a story and a half.
I mean, so there's just floating out.
No,
in the
it
ocean
was
there.
way up. It was rocks.
No, they
here's
died.
Here's the beach right here.
Okay, I thought the ocean was below there.
Oh, whenever they jumped way down, and they ended up in them rocks, you know. Oh. They were pregnant or whatever, you know, and they was trying to stop them because they held them until they got them all back together. They would then, the soldiers and that would have been sent back to the mainland.
So you're telling me during the war we were sending soldiers back to come back? Or
yes, they did. No, the ones that come down and went into the trial line, they catch them, they'd send them back, you know, because they already signed.
Well, pardon me if I say this, but that's FUBAR.
Yeah.
that was after the treaty was signed.
Oh, it was after the treaty? Still FUBAR.
Yeah.
You know what? We don't got to kill them, but some kind of punishment or something.
Let them swim
Yeah.
back.
So
Yeah.
tell me where you were at when the treaty was being signed. When did you hear about it? Because it was signed on the U.S. Missouri, if I'm correct.
On the Missouri, yeah.
Okay, where were you and what boat were you on?
Well,
when
the
you guys-
Missouri
the
got
news
in there.
came across?
Missouri got in there before we did. You know, because we started to go home. You know, and then we went on in, but the Missouri wasn't there no more. After that was signed, they came out of there, and I don't know where in the hell they went. But we went in there, and then I told you we helped deactivate that naval base there.
Yeah, Nagasaki.
See? Yeah, and I've been on the Yokota, which was Japanese. One of them, it was there to bomb Pearl Harbor. And you ain't seen nothing so crummy as them was. They had a room that must have been, you see how wide them three parking spots are?
So we're talking about as wide as a parking
About
spot?
that wide, and it must have been half as times as long. Everybody jump in there one time and take a bath in that.
Oh, man. So life on a ship.
They walked around the street. If they had to pee,
Right there in the street.
right. If they had to take a crap, they pull their drawers down, shit right on the street.
So you were on the Iowa. Was there ever a moment when you thought, oh, no, this isn't good? Or
I'm going to tell you what. I had a moment, and it was the biggest one I had in my life. And we was going home on the Iowa. And every evening at 6 o'clock after the meal, everybody's got to be finished. But at 6 o'clock, there's always a chaplain who comes on and he says a little prayer over you, a prayer of thanks. Well, this night, we're there and a bosun mate come on and he says, after the prayer that the pastor had, and he says, crew, the captain wants to talk to the crew. So when he comes on, he says, this is Captain so-and-so. He says, and I want to take and warn you that there's a chance that we'll hit a tidal wave. He says, and when you hit that tidal wave, if we should happen to flip, just hold on as much as you can, because everything will drop off and the ship will take, in 15 minutes, would come back up, but then there's nothing left on it. Well, that was if we hit the tidal wave. He says, we're going to try to miss the tidal wave. We're going to change course. So we changed the course. And we didn't hit the big part of it, but we hit the thinner part of it. And we had two 50 millimeter up on the bow, right on the edge of the bow. Then we had two 40 millimeters over here. And then right back in here, you had smaller guns, and you had the 5-inch 38s, starting of them. We had 10 of them. But we only thought that was going to happen. But what that little bit that we hit, it tore the guns off the bow. It tore the 20s that we had there. The 40 millimeters had a shield around them to protect the guns and the ammunition, and they bent that like bread, both of them. It tore off the mics, it tore off the scopes that we had on the 50s and that. It damaged our 5-inch 38s. It tore two airplanes off. The lifeboats was tore off. We had nothing.
And think about that, ladies and gentlemen. He just said the USS Iowa was one of the biggest ships in the fleet.
It was.
And it almost tore this boat in half.
Yeah. You tell it buckled the bow a little bit, you know. And although I've seen the Pittsburgh didn't have a bow left, you know, and that was it. We're at Okinawa, and she backed all the way back to Guam, and they fixed her up to hold, and she left and made herself all the way back to Pearl Harbor with no bow.
So think about these large ships that the Navy sails this season, okay? She went in reverse all the way to port, and then they fixed it up. This is a giant battleship we're talking about here.
Well, they welded up everything, so, you know, and then they all the way back. But the battleships, as big as they always sit here. And then you had carriers that sit here.
So the carriers sat outside the battleships?
Each one, the heavy cruisers and the light cruisers.
So they made their way out.
The only one was they protected the battleships because you could shoot over everything they had.
So the battleship was the main ship then, and everything worked its way out from there. You had the smaller ships on the way out. So I do have a question, because growing up, I was fascinated with World War II just because of the simple reason of what you men and women went through at the time. Like, I watched Saving Private Ryan, one of my favorite movies of all time, when they stormed the beach of Normandy and stuff like that. Did you ever witness the airplanes flying over and bombings and things like that, or anything? I mean,
it did. On the battleships, they never got that far in.
Oh, because
on the older battleships, you know, they was off in another area because they would be fighting another battle. But the heavy ships would take on the islands that there was a lot of fortification on it, see? And they stayed out here. That's why I got that picture of Evo.
Okay.
You know, it's because we stayed out and we could take and fire in anything.
So you were fire support then?
I was fire control. They sent me to school for fire control.
Okay.
And when you went to school, fortunately, I didn't have education for...
you got one after World War II, didn't you?
You get it while you're in there, but it ain't the same thing.
Oh, you got any questions, Kyle?
Yeah. So how long was your training then for your schooling?
How
long was your schooling for your job?
Oh, for my job, 6 weeks.
6 weeks? That seems kind of short to be a guy sending off missiles that'll destroy an island, Joe.
Well, you know, was you out in San Diego?
Yeah, I was at
I heard
CRD.
you say you go, but see, we couldn't even go on that island.
Mm-hmm.
That was for officers all in the Marines.
Iwo Jima?
Huh?
what island? Or
Out of San Diego,
MCRD?
Coronado.
yeah.
But we couldn't go on there at all. That was for officers and chiefs and that, you know.
So what was your rank?
I was a fire controlman first. That was the
Well, what was your rank?
our liberty rank. I was third class.
What were you, an E3, an E4?
We didn't go back.
Oh, petty chief officer. I mean,
We went first class, second class, third
for
class.
that's it. See, I don't know much about how the Navy's
But see,
rank goes, but
another thing about when we went through boot camp before we ever went over, we had to go up to Pendleton.
okay.
And when we got up to Pendleton, it was for rifle range. And they had a bomb, not a bomb, but an ammunition building up there. And they flooded it with gas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, whenever we got up there and we get through with one, we went in the other one. Well, we go in, they tell us before we went in, you know, when they say, you got to walk in.
You're talking about the gas chamber, aren't
Yeah. You got to walk in, and we're telling you now, you better take and walk straight in and straight out, because if you don't, you're going back through. Well, I seen them take a lot of them, man, and go back through again. I think sometime they was upward.
you? Oh, man, that gas chamber is brutal. I'll tell you what, man.
But
Best memory about
then
basic.
we took a boat, and we left out of the naval base, and we went across the harbor, and we made attacks on the beach, and the wire laid on the ground, and next step up, and we had to crawl backwards and hold up the wires and everything, you know. And we had a chief petty officer that was taking us through all that, and he stood up, and he had some rocks in his hand. And he'd see somebody stick their head up, and he'd throw that rock at him. He said, just think if that was a bullet catching you. But that, any time that somebody says, let's lay on our back and crawl through, that's a tough job. Because that rifle you got, you're holding it here, and you're scooting with your legs and your butt. There ain't no wiggling. You just go right straight back.
So you're crawling under barbed wire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're talking about wiggling backwards with the rifle above
Yeah.
your head on your back.
Yeah.
I could imagine that's tough. I mean,
Sure did.
did they ever fire live rounds over the barbed wire while you were going through?
A good year before they ever decided to get everybody together for mainland. You know, they took in, was calling everybody. They were loading it up, man. They were loading it up. And when we went into the Philippines, and when you got into the harbor, all you could see were the ship's cross arms and that sticking up out of the water, you know,
So
the whole water.
So I'm going to take a little situation here. Pearl Harbor happened, and America decides to join the war. Where are you at in your stage of life, and when did you decide to join?
Where was I at?
In your stage of life, when you heard about Pearl Harbor, were you already in? When did you join
Well,
the Navy?
my brother-in-law was on the Maryland, and they wanted to go to church on Sunday morning. They didn't have a Catholic chaplain, so they took him to the West Virginia.
So were you already in the Navy at the time?
No,
No.
but I used to take and joke with him because they were going to church, and we were coming out of St. Michael's, and that was downtown. And my two cousins and their wives and myself, and we was going out to my cousin's house. And he reached over and he turned the switch on the radio, and it said, the Japanese is now bombing Pearl Harbor. That's while they was going to church, see? But he was in the water for about 3 days, you know. But he went in about 4 months before the war started. And
So you were at home at this time? Then?
yeah.
So when did you decide to join?
I would have joined the next day. They'd have called me.
I know we went through this story before, I think, on the Memorial Day one.
Yeah.
But how when and how did you join the Navy?
Well, how did I join it?
Yeah.
I went downtown on 12th and Clark. I was going to go to the post office, the old post office. I was going to join the Coast Guard. So when I get to the Coast Guard, they told me I couldn't pass because I was too little. But she told me, she says, go home, eat all the bananas you can eat. Don't do nothing but then come back down here. So that's what I done. Then when I took the old streetcar, Lee streetcar, and I went down to 12th Street again, and when I got off the streetcar, I said, well, shit, I'm going to join the Navy. So I went across the street up on the 9th floor and to join the Navy. The first thing they done was strip.
And what year was this?
All the little spots on you.
What year was this?
Yeah. Huh?
What year was
45.
this? 45?
Yeah. All the little spots on you. And me, like a damn fool, I had my name put on. But you know why I had that put on there?
I have no idea.
Huh?
No idea.
Because I always thought if I went down and they found me, they'd know who the hell I was.
Well, what if your arm was missing?
Yeah, well, that's somebody else's.
I have a funny story about that. One time, I believe I was a little kid. We were at the bank, and for whatever reason, he didn't have any identification on him. I think you were cashing a check or something, and they wouldn't. They didn't want to cash your check because you didn't have any ID, and then you pulled up your you pulled up your sleeve, and the person behind the bank teller said, "Well, I guess you wouldn't have somebody else's name on your." Arm.
It's kind of like one story that happened to me. I went to go rent a hotel room and didn't have any identification. I told the lady at the front desk just to Google me, and she goes, well, that works.
You know what it cost me to have my tattoos put on?
I don't know how much it cost at that
I'm
time.
going to show you something. I can't show it on there anyway. But you see that one?
Yeah, the one that says Joe Miles, U.S. Navy.
I never knew I had that one.
You're talking about the one with the boob?
Huh?
You got a boob on your arm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you? So
every time that we got shots, the nipple on it, they'd stand there and they'd go,
Like a dart?
oh no, yeah. Yeah, that thing here right there.
Okay, so you're in the
See it?
Navy.
Right
Yep.
there.
Let me see that. Lift that up again. That is a boob.
Yeah, it is.
Joe, you got a boob on your arm. That's fucking amazing.
But I didn't know I had that.
So how did you get it then?
Yeah. But tell us the story. Were you wasted or what?
We just got back home, and there was a bar that we used to go to. And when we get halfway finished up, the bartender would call a cab and say, take them back. They knew. Then when we went back in, we used to pay, see? Well, we're on our way walking back to Pico Landing, and that's where the Liberty boats come in. And we're about halfway back, and they had like a carnival there along the area. And that's Long Beach, California. And we're halfway through. We're halfway through, you know. And some sailor, I don't know who the hell he was, but he ran out from the end of a building and he cracked my one buddy. And they start fighting. Well, right away, there's a whole crowd around, and I could see somebody moving that, you know. So I get right out there with them, and I'm telling them, I'm going to hit the first one that makes a move out that way. Well, they must have thought I was tough, but I wasn't.
That's because you ate all them bananas.
But they all stopped. Well, we slept in a motel, not a motel, but it was the, what do they call them? We have them around here when they're collecting for holidays and that. Salvation Army. And they used to charge us $25 to stay all night in there. All it was a bunk to go in, lay with your clothes on. And, you know.
Just $25 at the time.
Quarter, yeah. Well,
nowadays
anyway,
they put those in the vibrating machine beds.
The next morning, when we got up, you know, I look over and what the hell is that? You know, I never remember getting it put on.
I wonder what was going through your mind when you did it. Like, put that boob right here.
Yeah, I wasn't ready. I said, well, just give me that one. I don't know what the hell one it was.
You just pointing at something on the wall. So this leads me to another question.
And
that I
my
have.
wife didn't know I had that, at the time.
That's what I was
But
going to ask
then
you.
eventually, I told her, I said, well, I had that put on because I was going to put your name in.
So were you married while you were in the military?
Huh?
Were you married while you were in the Navy?
Yeah,
Were you married while you were in the Navy?
no.
No,
No.
man, he was 15 when he joined.
So you're out of. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. But so your wife never seen it.
No, but that was when we got going, and then we got married. But she had never seen my arm,
And you've been naked around her? She's
Not
never
up
seen
here.
your arm?
Not up here.
I guess not
That's-
back then. I mean,
That was the same way, all these little ones, I had them all put up here
right?
that nobody can see them,
Oh, I'm covered. If I
Oh.
took my shirt off, I'm
Yeah.
covered in tattoos.
I ain't got a tattoo on here that costs over $1.25, and that's
Shit, you
this
paid
one.
less than
oh
I did.
man,
That's it. I went back.
wish.
Well, a doctor, I had a good buddy of mine that was family doctor. Him and I went to school together. And he told me, he said, Joe, don't worry about them. He said, because when they go over to take them off, he said, you're going to have a hell of a scar, So he said, just leave them on there. Your sleeves will cover them. I said, thanks, John.
I was worried about it because I was like, I heard when you get older, tattoos fade. But Joe, your stills look pretty good.
Yeah,
How long ago was that?
I know. I mean, you were like, what, 17, 16, 15, 18? I don't know.
yeah.
But, I mean, like, look, I'm gonna show you just the front of me. But, like, I'm covered in tattoos. My whole back's covered.
Oh, boy. That's
mean,
good. That's
I've got
good,
them
though.
everywhere.
Yeah, the only ones I don't like to see it on, I don't like to see it on a woman.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Well, like you said, you got to keep them to where they're not
If they're
visible.
doing it, but they show it all over their legs, and arms and that. But shit, I've never seen any sailor ever have that many.
Well, join the Marine Corps.
Yeah,
That's like a thing to do, I guess, with military guys is get tattoos, wouldn't you say?
that's right. But I tell you, the Marines, we had I'm trying to think what we call them, fleet Marines.
Yeah, Fleet Marines.
Yeah. And I've had a lot of buddies in there, and
Fleet Marine Force.
yeah. So I never had to worry when I only weighed 116 pounds when I went in the Navy.
So you had to put rocks in your pockets to
Yes,
stay on the
sir.
ground?
Bananas.
Bananas. Oh, that's great.
Navy suit, we have it upstairs, and it's like that wide.
So she's showing us how wide his Navy suit was, and it's probably about maybe a foot.
Yeah.
A little skinny Joe in a
that's
little
right.
Navy in his whites.
I'm surprised they didn't recruit you for a submarine.
Huh? I volunteered for the submarines.
Oh, so you've actually been on a submarine then?
Yeah, but they wouldn't take me.
Ah,
Because, see, everybody, where'd you take your physical?
My what?
Physical.
Physical? Down in St. Louis. I forget where it was.
But see, all of us
Maps.
back in them days, everybody had to go to JB.
Jefferson
oh,
Barracks.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, Arkansas and different places that it was attached to Missouri went to JB. Well, JB, they just push you through.
So people who don't know, Jefferson Barracks is the VA hospital
Yeah.
here in St. Louis, one of
Yeah.
them. But that's what he's talking about.
But see, they took and pushed you right on through there. And with me, they go in my ear, and they told me, they says, you're supposed to be rejected because of your ear. And he says, you really want to get in the Navy? And I said, well, that's what I'm here for. He said, well, I'm going to pass you. He said, now when you get to boot camp, he said, you're going to get another physical just like this. And he said, if they catch it, they might send you back home. So when I get out there, sure enough, boy, that was the first thing they called was that damn ear. And he said to me, he says, how did you get through St. Louis? He said, they should have rejected you. And I told him what went about. And then he said, well, they passed you. He says, I'm going to pass you too.
Well, so the amount of men and women that we needed for this war, they were still rejecting people?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
That is.
I mean, that's crazy to think that we're at war with the world and they're still telling people you're not fit for military service.
Yeah. Well, I told you about that ear being, I stuck that left ear over. Well, she'll tell you I'm always saying, what?
Yeah, I'm always saying what, too. I got blown up, so like on my left
Yeah.
ear, I'm always like, huh?
Yeah. I tell you, when you can't hear,
It's
bad
great.
news,
Sometimes
yeah.
it's good
Yeah.
because then you don't hear people yelling at you.
I'll tell you something else, how perfect they was on making you physically fit to go. Well, they passed me for my ear, Well, after I get out of the Navy, I had a couple things that happened to me in there, and they should be in my medical records. But anyway, we get out, and this buddy of mine, like I told you, was my family doctor. And he said to me, he said, Joe, he says, tell you what I'm going to do. He says, I'm going to put you in St. John's. And he said, I'm going to give you a physical from the top of your head to your bottom of your feet.
So he stuck his finger in your butt?
Yeah, he said, go ahead.
Twice.
He says, well, he said, sure, I'll do that, So he put me in there. And the first day I'm in there, that morning, they come down and they take me down for a kidney x-ray. And he takes a shot of it, and he walks out to me and he says, did you ever have any problem with your kidneys? And I said, not a one. I said, I could drink a half a barrel of beer and it wouldn't have hurt me. Well, he said, I want to take another shot. So he took another shot and he come out and he said, you sure you never had any problem with it? I said, no problem. So he took one of this side and they sent me back up, and here come John. And I said, you better go and find out what the hell is wrong. I said, they think they found something wrong with one of my kidneys. Well, then he comes up and he tells me, well, Joe, you know how I am. He said, I won't do no cutting until we're sure. So he got a urologist in, and they went up in me, and he pulls it back out, and he said, don't worry about it. He says, you ain't got a kidney.
So you have one kidney.
Yeah, in the Navy,
You were only born with one kidney.
yeah, born with one kidney, Well,
Wow.
it ends up, before I went in the Navy, I was just a kid selling papers. And twice I had a kind of a monkey feeling, I'll put it like that. I got my cart and I'm pushing it up Salisbury, and all of a sudden everything gets yellow and I'm dizzy and all, Well, I sit, and first thing you know, it cleared out little by little. Well, I went ahead and delivered my papers. 2 weeks later, I got my cart and I'm going back up Salisbury, and this one's even worse. So I sat home. Went home. I had a passage to go in the house, and my mother asked me, she said, what are you doing here? I said, I got to sit for just a little bit, and I told them about it. Well, I go down and I joined the Navy.
And how old were you when you joined the Navy?
They got that. Then after I got out of the Navy, and one day I'm out cutting the grass, and I could feel myself, and I could put in the backyard, and I'm laying in the grass passed out. And I come out of it, and I thought, what the hell am I doing down here? So I go in the house, and I said to my wife, I said, I was laying in the grass out there, passed out. And I said, you're always telling me, make sure you let me know if you don't feel good.
So
Then
how
they-
old were you when you found out you didn't have a kidney?
Well, 49, 47, something like that.
So you were 47 years old, and that's how until you found out you were missing a kidney.
Even a tube for it. It didn't have nothing. Yeah, that's.
So 47 years. You lived 47 years till you found out you were missing a kidney.
Yep. Then I come out of it. Well, then this here all went out, and I went in the Navy, and on the Iowa, I had a bad thing happen. I got this kooky feeling, and I sit down. And I told my buddy, I said, I'm going down to the dispensary. So I go down. I got a fever, high fever. And the doctor told him, he said, well, just put him in bed, give him something for his fever.
So aspirin and bread?
I'm in there for over 2.5 weeks. They're trying to break that fever. But that fever was the same thing, that yellow color, Well, one day, whenever I'm home, I go do this. Then I done it again. And the second time that I passed out in the yard is when it was worse than the first time. And then first thing you know, I had a bypass, quadruple bypass, and they tell me that my blood is only 30%. They ain't got enough to push it up.
So you make it through World War II.
Yeah.
And then you almost die because you found out you were missing a kidney?
That's right. So I had heart problem,
Oh, wow.
I got a pacemaker sitting up here.
That's amazing. Like, that's the scary thought about, like, I made it through Afghanistan and Iraq, and I've probably almost died more times being home than I can even imagine. Like, you make it through this war, and then something so minute and just could take you out in a minute.
Yeah.
How old are you now, Joe?
Yeah, I'd be 94.
94 years old. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, if you're out there right now and you're listening to this, if you ever see a World War II veteran, ask them about their stories. They're living history. I mean, there's nothing you can get closer to knowing about what happened back then than to talk to one of these gentlemen. I'm sure they wouldn't mind. I know Joe doesn't mind right now talking to us. I mean, back then, yeah, probably. But nowadays, it's like, it's over. I mean,
it's over. But,
it's history.
But you think, and then you remember something, then you get hesitant because you don't remember it. And you have to go back and pull it out again,
Right.
So...
I mean, they're an older generation. Pretty soon, they're not going to be around anymore.
No.
I mean, so
I'll
to
tell
get
you,
this kind of stuff recorded on history is amazing for me to have this conversation with you because we're getting the Joe Miles Sr. story put on record.
But if you take and go to any of the VFW books or anything like that, and it's got in there, we got this particular Marine medal.
Mm-hmm.
You look in there and it goes all the way back to Korea, and you never see anything in there for a World War II veteran anymore.
Right.
None.
Really? I did not know that.
Well, there ain't many of us left anyway,
And then it's I don't want to say it's sad because it's a long time ago. We all outlive our time. But like I said, it's history. You guys are a part of history, and not to be able to hear it firsthand, your stories, to hear what I learned about in school is just amazing and fascinating to me.
But see, I had an R&R in Japan, and it was up in Atami, Japan. And I was up there for 10 days. There was 5 sailors, counting myself. That was the first time the sailors had ever been up in there. So anyway, I was talking to my wife one day, and I said to her, I says, I wonder if I can pull up Nagasaki, not Nagasaki, but Atami, Japan, on the computer. So I went to the computer, and I typed in Atami, Japan, hit the button when it comes on. Boy, all these new modern buildings is up and everything like that. I said, hell, I didn't see nothing like that. So I shut it back down, and then I put 1945. You know, and I hit it, and when it comes up,
It showed
there
you
it
exactly
is,
what it
man.
looked
There
like?
it is. Yeah, it's just exactly like it was whenever I had that R&R there.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I don't want to cut you off here, and I'm sure you got more amazing stories, but we're reaching towards the end here. I'm going to let you go so you can go back home, but to sit here in front of you, like I said, and have this amazing conversation of someone who's been to a historic event like Nagasaki, I mean, it's talked about everywhere in history books, and you actually stood there. That's just amazing to me. So to
gotta-
meet you,
I got to give you credit when you're through there on something. A Marine.
yeah, you're
We
giving a Marine
almost-
credit? Uh-oh.
We almost hit what the hell you call the floats? They had them out there to sink the ships.
Oh, the mines?
Mines. I couldn't think of that little word. But anyway, one of the guys was on watch, and when they spotted it, it was about like that far from the tree, from the
So about
side,
20,
yeah.
30 feet?
So they call one of the sharpshooters up out of the Marine Division, and they sit there and they kept popping it until they hit that point. And when they hit the point, boom.
Well, you being in the Navy, you know why the Marines exist,
Oh,
right?
yeah. So you can make fun of them.
No. You know why the Marines were made. It was so we could be on the ships to protect the sailors. And you know the reason why the officers have the cross on top of their hats, right?
We put that up there.
So we wouldn't shoot the officers.
That's where all the pay was.
Right, so we wouldn't shoot the officers from the mast.
Yeah,
It's exactly why.
that's right. I had a guy, our directors for the 40 millimeters, 50 millimeters, and we had to go up and take these off of there all the time to check them, you know. And they told me, they said, Joe, when you go up, paint that damn director. He said, because we're going in port, and they'll be looking for that, and there's some rust spots on it. Well, I wouldn't have normally done them. They would have sent a deck force up there. I'm up there, and I paint that son of a gun the same color as his shirt. Boy, they come down, they want to know who in the hell painted that director. They run me back up there. The first thing you know, here's a first-class firewoman. We're out there painting that damn thing.
Well, sir, we'll have to have you on again, and I really do appreciate your time, but we're kind of running out of it. I would like to thank his son for bringing him out here to us, so that way we could enjoy his time.
Absolutely. Guys, Todd, thank you very much for having us out.
And like I said, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know much about World War II, you need to brush up on your history. This man has been through a lot and seen a lot. But we're going to end it with that. We've got all kinds of things going on right now here in the parking lot. It's getting a little crazy. So this is a little bit out of my format, but we'll end it with that, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks for taking your time.
Oh, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.